Hello, hello, everybody. This is Miguel coming at you again with another How Was That Race? Today we have featured on here, we have Steph Dunlap, aka Run Strong Run. We're going to be talking about the California International Marathon. California International Marathon takes place around the Sacramento area. It is a point-to-point race with a net downhill. Today's featured brewery is going to be Urban Roots Brewery out of Sacramento area. We're going to be featuring the Bourbon Barrel Aged Chocolate Moustache Spumoni 2025. This is a choc cocoa nibs with Madagascar vanilla, and then with cherry and pistachio for another ice cream inspired beer. My gosh, delicious. 14.9 on the ABV. I'm gonna have to put it somewhere around the 25 on the IBUs. So nice, strong, smooth, delicious, thick. Just so let's go ahead and get in with Steph. Steph, what brought you to the CIM, the California International Marathon? Oh, wait a minute. We did not speak of how many marathons you've done. I believe you have some wonderful medals behind you, those who are listening in. How many marathons and half marathons are you at?
I have no idea how many half marathons. I have not kept track, so I couldn't tell you. But as far as full marathons go, I'm so far at 59 since my first in 2012.
Awesome. So that puts you in the veteran status there. You're over halfway to the Hall of Famer status. It sounds like you're making great strides. You and I have paced, you and I have paced together at the Jack and Jill Marathon on the Sunday version, I believe, and that was out of North Bend, Washington, which is about an hour east of Seattle. I don't think you mainly hit up the West Coast. Is that correct?
Yes, I do try to stay mostly on the West Coast because I try to run a marathon like ideally I leave Saturday morning and I'm back by Sunday night. So it's harder to travel further out east and be able to make it there and back within 48 hours.
Yes, that would definitely be difficult. That would be. So, okay, we're going to be coming in. We're going to be getting back to the CIM, the California International Marathon. We're going to be referring to it both ways for those unfamiliar. How did you first come across the CIM?
Well, I'm from the Sacramento area, born and raised here. I first started running marathons. My first marathon was in 2012. So coming at the time, actually, when I first ran my marathon, I was living in Mexico teaching. That's also where I fell in love with running. I actually went from 0 miles to 26.2 in less than a year. That's kind of a whole story on its own. But when I moved back home in 2012, that's kind of how my world was opened up to marathons. I think before then, I didn't even really know what a marathon was. So people might have been talking about CIM, but I really had no idea what it was. And so it actually took me a few years to run CIM because it always sells out very quickly. And so the first time I ran CIM was actually in 2016. So that's kind of how my journey with CIM got started. And I think actually CIM is the marathon that I've run the most number of times.
Oh, roughly how many times do you recall running that?
I think I'm now up to 6 or 7 times.
Oh, awesome. I've ran the Monumental. That's the one I've ran the most. I believe I had nine. And as I pace it, I announce the turns. And at first, it's something to entertain my pace group because they hear me. And I'm like, left turn coming up, and they're like, well, what's after that? And I'm like, there's a right, a left. Are you similar with the CIM? You know all the turns there?
I'm pretty. No, I don't. When people ask me specifics about the course, I'm like, I can tell you like vaguely, but because it goes through neighborhoods that I'm not very familiar with, I think it's easy to kind of forget. And also, I think I'm one of those people that when a marathon is difficult or like during a marathon, you kind of forget the pain or you kind of like just go to this headspace where you kind of like black out in a sense. And also I pace CIM. I have paced CIM since 2021, and that's a whole another story in its own. But
Awesome.
also I'm like
Great.
so which Miguel, as a pacer, you become so connected with the people around you. And CIM is my largest pace group out of all the races that I pace every year. It is truly like one of my favorite favorite marathons, favorite race weekends. It's like my hometown marathon, my biggest pace group. So yeah, I just tend to forget the course.
Ah, it's fabulous. Okay, so normally we don't really speak of times because here at How Was a Race, we do not care about how fast it took you to get that medal on your neck. We only care about how many medals you have on your neck. However, for this one, especially since you're a pacer and you're repeat for the CIM, what pace group do you normally range with that group?
So, Miguel, you're going to love this, but actually, I became a CIM ambassador in 2017. And then I was an ambassador again in, I believe, 2018. And then again, like in 2020. Well, I don't remember exactly, but I was ambassador for several years. And so I got known in the community of CIM. And then I was at like the CIM kickoff event August of 2021 after just giving birth to my youngest child in July of 2021. And I was talking about how I served as unofficial 6 hour pacer to a first time marathoner in the year prior or something, or in 2019, something like that. And next thing I know, I'm getting an email from the executive race director saying, "Thank you so much for volunteering to be our first ever 6 hour pacer." So I was like ecstatic, but also nervous at the same time because at that time I was 6 weeks postpartum. And I was like, I mean, I had planned to run the race, but to run the race for myself and to pace the race are two very different things. So I'm happy to report that I paced successfully the 6 hour marathon at CIM in 2021. And I've been back every year as a 6 hour pacer. Well, that's a whole nother story now because now I'm actually pacing 550. But it's probably one of my proudest running accomplishments to bring support and encouragement and a voice to the back of the pack at the California International Marathon, because it's a race that is known for being fast. And you have a lot of people who come to CIM to earn an OTQ, Olympic time qualifying race, BQ, of course, and then I love that you said it doesn't matter the time that you run a marathon. What matters is that you have that finisher medal around your neck. And so that's my job as 550 pacer, is to get runners into that finish line to earn that medal and to be there before that 6 hour cutoff time.
That's truly incredible. Just how the that's there. It's hard to really contextualize, but how you came into this as unofficial, and then they found you, and it all worked out. That's really incredible. Um, so going in, um, do you really recall? Do they have the registration process? That one is a larger race, I believe. Is there a lottery to enter the race, or is that a registration, or a little bit of both? How does that work?
There's no lottery. It is open registration. I can't recall exactly the number of runners they cap it at, but it seems like every year it sells out sooner and sooner. So the marathon is the first Sunday of December, and right now they usually sell out July.
Okay, but then me and you spoke about it before, and coming up in October, which this episode will be released relatively soon to the recording date. But in October, the bib exchange will open. They do allow bib exchange uh, for that. So, do you recall the registration process?
Not really, since I haven't registered for the race. And well, I mean, I guess I registered for the race as a pacer, but they have like different tiers. So like one of the tiers that you can register for is like the guaranteed tier, where like you can transfer your bib, but they have like a lower priced one that like you can't transfer your bib. So if you are a runner who like wants to register for the race, and maybe you're registering for the race in February and you're not sure where life is going to bring you come December time, you might want to register for that guaranteed one where you can transfer your bib to someone else and recoup some of that registration cost.
Awesome. Okay. So you're going through, you register for the race, you get everything ready. Well, you're getting ready. Are there uh, an excessive amount of emails, a right amount of emails? How is the communication for this race?
I think the communication is great. I do not think there's an excessive amount of emails. They do have like a newsletter, or I can't, or I think they call it CIM University. Like as we're getting closer to race, like I think now we're about 18 weeks from race weekend. So they have like regular CIM universities, they call it, talking about fuel, talking about the course, talking about training, different things. I think the communication is great, and their socials is great too. I mean, you can find them on Instagram or Facebook. So I think they do a great job with that.
Awesome. So that's really good because you don't want you don't want zero communication where you almost forget about the race. Some of us who have a few more medals on our neck, we're a little better at uh, the training and lacing up and going at it. However, uh, those that are a little bit newer to the race, the official race environment, the formal race environment, they could definitely benefit. And I remember I was talking to Peter about the Air Force Marathon, and he was speaking of sometimes there's construction where the route normally is one road, but they, because of some large project with the city, they have to reroute the course because there's a bridge closure, a road closure, what have you. So you're getting ready. You have the registration. You have your confirmation email. The day is coming towards the expo. How is getting to the expo, getting into the expo itself, and the expo environment?
Well, I must say that attending the CIM Expo for the first time in, I guess that was 2016, I was blown away. It's probably one of my favorite expos. It's held at the Sacramento Convention Center, which used to be held at in a different arena, but now it's held at Sacramento Downtown Convention Center. It's great. They host a shakeout run the morning before Saturday morning before the expo opens on Saturday. The expo is also open on Friday. So, but I usually attend on Saturday, and I'm actually usually there like all day Saturday volunteering in the Pacer booth. They also have like a speaker panel at the expo. And the last 2 years, I've been invited to speak on the speaker panel to represent like the back of the pack, provide a voice for the back of the pack, those first time marathoners who are nervous about making it across finish line in time. And that's been a real honor and joy. So, like to see all these people, all these runners come from across all over the world, all over the country to come to Sacramento to run CIM. I mean, the expo is very well organized. You're going to be in and out of there quickly if that's what you need to do. There's a lot of vendors. Of course, you can shop. And the speaker panel too is great. So communication with that is wonderful. Like parking is pretty easy. It's great to participate in the shakeout run Saturday morning before the race to hit up the expo, and then you're going to have time to put your feet up and relax and get ready for race day the next day.
Awesome. So that's great. So there's a lot of vendors there. Everything's there. That one thing I always speak of is so that you can say that you forgot your shorts. Not saying that's ever happened to me. Not saying that's not ever happened to me. But say you forgot your shorts. Say your luggage got lost. You can show up on race day, or I'm sorry, you can show up to the expo, and you can leave mostly outfitted with what is needed.
Absolutely. They have fuel there. They have hydration packs. They have clothes and shoes. They have everything you need.
Awesome. That is that's that's really good that they those things can be made available at the expo. So moving on, we're going to go to race day. Race day, you wake up, you're in your hotel room or however close you live to the start line, or Airbnb, what have you. Um, how is it getting? Because this is a point to point race, yes.
Yes.
So are there shuttles involved or no?
There are shuttles, lots of pickup locations. So that's probably one of the questions that people ask the most often during at the expo is like, which shuttle do they take and what time do they need to get there? For myself, I live about 40 minutes north of Sacramento. And so one of the shuttles that I take is, I believe it departs downtown at like starting, I'm not remember the exact time, maybe let's say 5 a.m. and race starts at 7 a.m. And so people are like, do I really need to get there to the shuttle 2 hours before the race starts? And the answer is yes, because the shuttle ride is going to be about 40 minutes to Folsom. So you get in the shuttle, which are usually mostly school
I
buses.
shot a man there.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I shot a man there. I just had to watch him bleed. Sorry. I am a dad for those listening. Sorry to interrupt. I
No, no,
so
no, that's fine.
apologize.
Yeah, so CIM starts in Folsom and ends in Sacramento. So yes, Folsom is also, many people have heard of Folsom.
Okay. Now this is a larger race, is it not?
It is. I'm not going to know the exact number, but I would say somewhere between 10 to 15,000 runners.
Okay. The reason that I think of when I ran Deseret News Marathon in Salt Lake City, Utah, that it is also a point-to-point race, and you shuttle out there about an hour or so before the race starts if you're on one of the early buses. However, they did let us start early, and that particular race, I think I started 43 minutes before the start. The only thing was is that I could not win any age group starting early. However, even with an early start, I still did not win any age group. So it didn't affect my placement on the podium, even with a 45-minute bonus. However, that is a much smaller race, I would say, especially for I don't know about the half. We didn't see their their shuttle and their takeoff, but for the full, it was only a few hundred runners. So the unofficial or unorganized early start, I don't think would be available for a race of this size.
Yes. So I've actually, there was a big controversy that happened after CIM 2023. I was pacing 6 hours. I crossed the finish line at like 5:59 something and on time. But then before I went through the finisher chute, I actually turned back around, went back out on the course because someone who had ran with me in 2021 and 2022, and he was back for his third year running with me. His name's Bruce Molden. He's a CIM streaker, which means he's run every CIM since it first started in 1984. And so
Oh wow.
he fell off at about mile 23. And so I went back out to bring Bruce into the finish line. We finished at like 6:09, went through the finisher chute, and we were told there was no medal. Now, mind you, this would now was my third year pacing 6 hours. And I was like, what do you mean there's no medal? Like we had never run into this problem before. And so, I mean, can you imagine it's your first marathon? You've just ran 26.2 miles. You get to the finish line and you don't get to walk away with a medal. How incredibly devastating, right? Like we take so much pride in our medals. I mean, obviously there's my medals hanging up here about back behind me. Truth be told, I don't even keep any of my other medals. I only keep my full marathon medals because it means so much to me. I mean, 26.2 miles is no joke. But there was this big controversy about like, did they run out of medals? Were they withholding medals because you were over that 6 hour time frame? So I actually got to have a long talk with Scott Abbott, who is executive race director for the California National Marathon and also executive director for the Sacramento Running Association. And we talked about like the 6 hour limit. And I forget now what we were talking about before this, but I was very honored that he was willing to have a phone conversation with me. Because it's you know what you know, like you don't know what you don't know. If you've never run in the back of the pack, if you've never heard the stories of these people that brought them to the starting line, of these people, just like such incredible stories. I know I'm speaking to the choir, Miguel. I know exactly what I'm meaning, but like Bruce Malden, who's like in his 70s, has run over 100 marathons, ultra marathons, and is still showing up to run the CIM because that's how much it means to him. Like he's like, I now only do one marathon a year. And like, this is the marathon I do a year with Stephanie. Like we're gonna cross the finish line together. But CIM unfortunately has moved to a more stricter 6 hour cutoff because I mean, I understand like it's a big event. Oh, I know. We were talking about early start. So one of the things that Scott asked, or one of the things I think maybe I asked Scott, was about like an early start. And I think that's that's going to be difficult because again, you have those elite runners in the front, and we're talking like hundreds of elite runners. And I think if they were to do an early start, it would be hard because then you have like these slower runners that might be impeding the path of these elite runners. You would also need to have like support out on the course for those early start runners. Like I just think logistically for CIM that would maybe be really difficult to have an early start. So I was kind of like trying to brainstorm with Scott, like what can CIM do to be a race for everyone from the front of the pack to the back of the pack? Like, are you going to be like Big Sur, where you have like 3 mile markers where it's like strict cutoffs? Like, if you're not at mile 13 by, X time on the clock, then you're pulled off the course. Like, that's what runners want and need. Don't allow runners to cross the finish line and then not give them a medal. Like, you can't do that. If you're allowing a runner to continue on course, they're going to expect a medal at the finish line.
I remember when I went to go run, when I did run, not the Colfax Marathon in
Oh,
Denver, Colorado.
sorry, one moment.
All right. We have a special guest with us, I believe.
This is a special guest. This is Sayla. Oh, did you just hurt your leg, Sayla? Okay.
Oh, is she okay?
Yes, the girl snuck in and started playing, and she got a little scratch on her leg.
Oh. Uh, so the Colfax Marathon in Denver, Colorado, the year I did that one, I came off of, I think, 4 marathons in 6 weeks, and I wasn't the most trained. And then I was at altitude. I'm from Indiana, which where I live, the elevation is around 500 feet above sea level, and Denver is famous for being 5,280 feet above sea level. And then you could, as we were coming in, we could not see the front range from the airport because of the smoke from the wildfires from Canada, and we could smell the smoke from the wildfires from Canada. So all these things combined, I was already the sweeper for the marathon, and I got swept myself. So we had to move to the sidewalk. However, as we went, it was a group of 3 or 4 of us. We passed different cafes and restaurants that were having sidewalk brunch, and we would ask people for water out of their carafe. And we made it, but the finish line itself stayed open. Just the course was no longer a closed course. So luckily, I had the route already, so I was able to get us to the finish line, and we were able to earn a medal that way. And that's another. I understand that not all races can do that, and every race has their own limitations for permits and things of that nature. However, if you can leave the finish line itself open for 2 hours or whatever past the cutoff time, because we were there, finished. I had my post race beers, probably 2 or 3, and then probably a post race water, and I was chit chatting, and then another runner came in and finished, and he was able to get an official finish time. However, that finish line is in a park, so the permits required for a park would be different than the permits required for a intersection on a busy street, on a otherwise busy street. So, and I'm not preaching to you on this one. I'm not telling you how this is done. This is for those who are less familiar with the process of permits, closures, and things of that nature. Um, how are the aid stations as you move across? There seems to be a good number of them, especially with a race of this size. You would think it'd be well organized. How were they?
Oh, aid stations are great for CIM. Yeah, so I'm the last pace group, and I don't recall us running out of whether it's water or electrolytes or they recently switched from their partner was goo, and now they do precision. So they do precision for the electrolytes and precision for the like gels. I remember it being well stocked even in the back of the pack. So CIM does a great job with that.
Now with that one, because that's one thing that you need to pay attention with the emails and the communication, because I train mostly with Tailwind Nutrition or Gatorade Endurance Formula. I know those two my body responds well with. Powerade, eh. And then there's other things such as Noon, which a friend of mine, she's an ultra runner. She's ran 100-mile races. Uh, I would put her in the neighborhood of probably 20 to 40 100-mile races, and she loves noon. I had bought noon for myself to train with, and I didn't like it, and I gave it to her, and she was so thankful. So uh, the thing is read the emails, see what nutrition is going to be on course, because if you're running, it might be something that a goo or something which you might know, and your body might or might not respond well with it, or it might be something that you're unfamiliar with. And the last thing you want, especially if you've traveled, say you're from Kentucky or Virginia or the East Coast, the other state, East Coast, Southeast, and you've traveled all the way to Sacramento, and now you're on course and you're at mile 7 and your stomach turns. And what are you going to do? Are you going to try to walk it in? If you're already at the back of the pack runner, no shame to a backpack runner. By God, I'm one of them. But now, just because you weren't able to plan properly, your race is not going as expected. Um, uh, just a little side note, this is not a podcast about how to run faster. This is not a podcast on how to run races. This is just a podcast on our experiences. And part of our experiences and part of us being pacers, Run Strong Run and I, Stephanie and I, is that we're going to drop these little tidbits of knowledge and experience, because we've ran, between the two of us and the other people I've had on my podcast already, I would probably say we're up to 1,000 marathons collectively. And a little bit of things that we've gained from each race will, if you take a little bit from each race and put that all together, you should come out with a very positive experience, or at least that's the goal. But let me step off my high horse. Let me get off my tangent. So we're going with the race course. Now, this is a net downhill course. Roughly, what is it from start to finish? And is it mostly on the front end, the back end, here and there? How's that?
Oh, I'm not going to remember exact numbers. That is not my area of specialty, but yes, it is net downhill from Folsom to Sacramento, ending at the Sacramento the California State Capitol building. I'm actually going to pull up my watch data from the race to tell you exact number. So I'm looking at December. Oh, no, that was a different marathon. December. Oh, there we go. December 8th, 2024. Let's see here. We lost 1,030 feet of elevation. We gained 761 feet of elevation. So it is a net downhill, but there is definitely rollers. And you're going to see those rollers in like the first half of the course. And so I remember the first time running the race in like 2016, you're like at mile 1 and you take your first right. There we go. I do know some part of the course. You take your first right and you see your first hill and you're like, what is this? I thought this was net downhill. And so I always like to remind people, like, make sure you're doing your hill training, because yes, you are going to gain over 700 feet of elevation in the course. And I mean, it is still Sacramento Valley, so it's not like at elevation. I mean, because it says my max elevation was 272 feet above sea level, and then my minimum one was actually 7 feet below sea level. So we are in the valley. We're like, yeah. But those rollers definitely take people by surprise. Now, for myself, my body actually prefers rollers in a marathon. I do not like a straight pancake flat course, because I like to use like different muscles, and I like to take advantage of the downhills, and then take it easy on those uphills, but then take advantage of those downhills. So I personally prefer a rolling course or a net downhill course. CIM is actually touted as like one of the top Boston qualifying courses in the West because of that net downhill. It's also first weekend of December, so it's usually really great weather. I mean, it's California, knock on wood, but every time I've run it so far, it has been great weather. There have been some years of rain and cold and all of that, but yeah, the net downhill, but there are some uphills in that.
Okay, it's good that we open that up a little bit, because I was thinking at first that it was going to be a 1,500 foot or 1,000 foot point to point downhill with maybe a little bit more like, for those familiar, St. George, I believe it's a St. George Marathon in Utah. There is a slight uphill during the course. However, it is largely a downhill course, and it's downhill by, I want to say that they had to move it because of the Boston qualifying um, parameters that they've changed. But it is a net downhill, but that's more of an aggressive 1,000 or 1,400 foot downhill, the St. George Marathon. I haven't run it myself yet, but I have ran anyhow. We'll get in that. We'll get in that in a different episode. So okay, so you're coming in point to point. It's some rollers. There's aid stations. How far apart are the aid stations? About 2 miles, 3 miles, 1 mile?
Definitely not 1 mile. I would say, yeah, 2 to 3 miles between the aid stations.
Okay, so that's pretty well spaced. For that, me personally, I would still bring a water bottle just because that's my personal preference, and that's also how I train 500,000 whatever miles a year is with a water bottle. So if I show up on race day without a water bottle, I don't feel right. Even if I finish with half a water bottle, I still have to have my my I guess you could call it my binky, my pacifier. I don't know what.
No, Miguel, you and I are the same. You and I are absolutely the same because I always carry my handheld water bottle. I have since I ran my first marathon, and oh, actually, no, my first marathon I had a waist hydration, but maybe my second one I started with the handheld, and yeah, it's like my security blanket. Like I feel naked without it. Like even when I go and like run just a 3 mile training run, I always have my handheld because one, I sweat a lot, and I think that's too what runners need to know about themselves is like what kind of runner are you? Because I know that I sweat a lot, so I'm losing a lot of hydration, and I know I'm a salty sweater. So usually in my hydration is plain water, and that at every aid station I'm drinking electrolytes. Now, fortunately, I have the kind of stomach that can pretty much tolerate any electrolyte, so I'll just use whatever the race has. Um, but yeah, I fill up my water bottle probably. I mean, if it's a super hot course, I'm filling it up, every other aid station. And so yeah, I drink a lot during a marathon.
Okay. But that's also where the experience comes in. As you've logged more and more miles, you learn more about your body and what your individual needs are. So you're coming in, you're seeing that finisher shoot, you come through the finisher shoot. What is the environment like along the course and at the end? What is the crowd support like? What is the finisher shoot like? What is that experience there?
Along the course, there are spectators because it does go through neighborhoods. And so there's some places where there's bands out. They have a great like halfway point with music playing, a lot of spectators. They don't have an official half marathon for CIM. They actually have a relay. And I think it was at one point like a 4-person relay, then it moved to like a 3 or a 2-person relay. So there's different relay exchange points, and that's how people can still participate in CIM and not run the full marathon. They can participate in the relay. But I would say there's great crowd support. So especially like in the final 10K, you're coming into downtown Sacramento. The final 10K, the course like flattens out, and a lot of people say like that's where you can race your marathon, your final 10K, you're running into the finish line. And I always say that to the runners around me, like, hey, if you're feeling good, this is where we say goodbye, and I'll see you at the finish line to congratulate you. But then there's others who are like, no, I'm sticking with you to the end. But I'm definitely not offended as a pacer to cross the finish line by myself because it means the runners in my pace group have finished strong. As far as the finish line goes, because CIM is known for their faster runners, the finish area, like it's still up, but maybe not as bustling and not as busy as it was if you finished earlier. But it's still going to be up. They're going to have merchandise there for sale at the finish line if that's what you want to do. They have some great photo opportunities at the finish line. They have usually they have some kind of, oh, sorry, those are my kids in the background again. Sorry, one hey, girls, I need you to go play somewhere else, please. Layla was trying to get me and she kicked me. Okay, please go play somewhere else. Thank you. So usually they have some kind of hot, this is a reality of being a mother runner. So, and I'm blessed. I'm so blessed that I'm able to still run and travel and run marathons. My children are 4 and 6 years old. But at CIM, they're gonna have like usually like a burrito or soup. Of course, they have their beer garden. That's where always I beeline it to the beer garden. So
Awesome. Now, how is the well? One thing I've neglected in the past. Well, we've mentioned sporadically the swag for the race and the medal. How is the swag? Do you get a finishers and yeah? Just how does that all play out?
well, in 2023, with the year they had kind of like the fiasco about the medal and stuff, that was their 40th anniversary. And that's when they, at the finish line, you got a backpack, you got a water bottle, you got a jacket, you got your medal. So they had a lot of swag for their 40th year. But usually, what you get at the finish line is you'll get a water bottle, like a reusable water bottle. So I have like a CIM collection of water bottles going on. And also, what's cool is it's usually filled with water. So you get a reusable
Oh,
water bottle filled with water at the finish line, and then you get your medal. That's usually what you get at the finish line. And then
okay.
of
And
course,
that
you get your finisher shirt. It's usually a long sleeve finisher shirt when you pick up your bib at the expo.
okay. So okay, so you're coming in. You got your medal. You got your water bottle. Which having a water bottle, a reusable water bottle filled with water. Um, because I've done several races where there are water bottles, but they're all disposable, and um, ah, I'm not I'm not huge on recycling and environmental management. However, I am conscious of those things, so I feel slightly bad with when I'm handed 3 or 4 reusable water bottles. And for the back of the pack runners, we come in and we see pallets full of water bottles. Now, typically, I will say that when I've done other marathons, when I've seen them finish, the volunteers will speak to the RD or whoever's in charge and say that you're one of the last 10 to finish or last 5 to finish. And there's a pallet of 40 cases. We'll just give an odd, and you might think it's an obscene number, but it's really not. 40 cases of water. They will speak to the emergency staff and they will give those waters to the police and to the emergency staff. That way, as they, I mean, one, they're humans as well. They need water in their day to day life, not a big deal. But also, as they go out into the community and do their job, sometimes the people that they service, um, they need water for one reason or another. So it's not that the water bottles are going to be cut into with a scissors or a knife and just go down a drain. However, it is nice to see reusable water bottles at the finish line, and that gives me something to take home, and it also produces less waste overall, which is it's nice knowing that the things that we participate in limit the waste. But going, so you have that, you have your water bottle, you go to the beer garden. After the beer garden, how do you typically celebrate the CIM?
Um, so the reason why I paused there is because CIM for me, it's such a big weekend. And I think what I'm realizing, Miguel, is that as a pacer, a marathon is much more mentally exhausting than it is physically exhausting as a pacer. And especially because CIM is my biggest pace group. I mean, I have probably 20, if not more, runners with me from start to finish. And sometimes I have people by my side the entire time. And sometimes I have people coming up to me Saturday at the expo crying because they're so happy to meet me in person because they've been following me for years on social media. They meet me in person, they're crying, they're filled with nerves and anxiety. It's their first marathon. They find me at the starting line, they're crying some more. They're filled with self-doubt during the marathon. I'm spending my energy and time like speaking affirmations to them. My one of my favorite is like I can, I am. I can run CIM. I am running CIM. I will make it to that finish line. And like using other positive statements such as the body achieves what the mind believes. Where your focus goes, your energy flows. And so we're focusing on that finish line. That's where our energy is flowing. We're not going to focus on what's feeling uncomfortable in our body right now. But how I celebrate, go to the beer garden, drink a beer, and then head to my car because I park close to the finish line and sit in my car silently. Like honestly, like it's just so much to process. Because then once I take that 40-minute drive home, mom mode is turned on. And in fact, what I have said is I I'm going to start taking that Monday, the next day off of work because I just have so much to process. And it's so hard to explain that. I know you know though, Miguel, because again, like CIM weekend for me, like I'm speaking on the expert panel at the expo on Saturday. I'm at the expo like all day Saturday. Sunday, of course, is race day. I am using my phone. I'm taking videos and pictures and recording content for social media during on Saturday at the expo, Sunday during the race. I'm meeting all these people. Like I'm talking, I'm running, so I'm like physically exhausted. I'm mentally exhausted, and also on cloud nine, but also so sad that it's over because CIM is like one of my favorite weekends of the entire year. So on that, so how do I celebrate? I celebrate by giving myself time to relish in the victory of being allowed, be given the honor to serve as the last pace crew for CIM, again to give a voice and representation to the back of the pack, to say that all runners count. That's my like slogan and battle cry, from the front to the back of the pack. Like all runners count. They're deserving of being there, deserving of that finisher medal. It doesn't matter the pace that they ran. It matters that they did it. It doesn't matter if you're using run walk intervals, because I'm a huge proponent of run walk intervals. And so there you go. That's how I celebrate it.
Yes, yes.
Processing it all.
I will say, okay, so I've ran, and I'll get into my times, but I don't always get into my times because here at I was a race, we don't care. However, my fastest was a 4:41. My 4:41 in Chicago, actually, at Heather, she paced me in Chicago in 2019, and she paced me at a 4:41, and I didn't pace shoulder to shoulder, but I kept her in my sights. And I did a run, walk, run, and I ran 9 minutes, walked one, ran nine, walked one. It was just something that more or less I came up with my own. But I ran a 4:41 and I walked in the first mile. But I ran in the 26th mile. And that was Chicago Marathon. And for those unfamiliar or those familiar, there is about a 1/10 of a mile section called Mount Roosevelt, and it's the only uphill on the whole course, really. And it's only about 40 feet of elevation gain, maybe 30 feet of elevation gain over a 1/10 of a mile. It just so happens that it's between miles 25.9 and 26. So you're near the finish, and you make a right-hand turn from Michigan Avenue onto Mount Roosevelt or Roosevelt, and it's an uphill. But my goal has always been to run Mount Roosevelt. And last year I wasn't fully successful, but three prior events, 19, 22, and 23, I was able to run Mount Roosevelt. Um, but I did so because in mile one, two, three, four, five, and so on, I walked, and I intentionally walked. Um, I would do like a 3-1, maybe a 4-1, depending on where your pace group is. Your run to walk interval is going to be different, and don't be afraid to have your run walk, and don't be afraid to walk. And if I if I had $1 for every person I passed in the last 3 miles that was running hard in the first, I'm like, guys, and I've caught people while pacing, and they're like, well, I feel better now. I think I'm going to run. I'm like, hey, I caught you. Maybe you ought to stick with us for just one more. Give me one more mile. Please give me one more mile. And it's not that I'm trying to slow somebody down and not help them. It's not that. I want them to succeed. And part of me wanting them to succeed is helping them get to that interval so that they can use different muscle groups, which you spoke of earlier when you was talking about rollers, and also giving your lungs and your heart an opportunity to come back down and recover and get that lactic acid a little bit flushed out of your system. And I mean, just unless you're really trained really well, running the entire 26.2 is typically difficult. So use those intervals. You spoke of the mental break that I don't want to say break, that mental break, the the opportunity to rest in your vehicle after you've done your race and just decompress is how I put it. I don't know if that's a proper term or not, and that also is a good thing for individuals. If especially if you live nearby, Peter, him and I spoke on the Air Force Marathon. He lives an hour away from this. I'm sorry, that's totally wrong. He lives a mile away from the start finish line. If he chooses down, he does his own thing. He finishes and celebrates. But if he needs to sit in his car for 5 minutes, or if he walks to and from the starting line and he walks a little bit slower than he could, just so that he could exhale, decompress, go over the events, go over the day, relive his day, recap his day, just enjoy his race experience. If that's what you need to do, by all means, everybody go out there and do it. It's a celebration because the marathon itself, unless you're there's very few people listening, or very few people in the world for that matter, that are going to be Boston qualifiers, Olympic OTQs, Olympic trials qualifiers. Those people, their post race experience is going to be completely different. But for the vast majority of us, we've trained up for this one major event, and you've looked forward to it, and you need to relish in it, and you need to enjoy it. And me personally, I wear I wear my medal all day. I go through TSA with my medal. I if it's a race in my hometown, I find reasons to go to the grocery store with my medal. I'm gonna rock my bad boy. So if that's what suits you, if you want to rock your bad boy and wear it out. When I read the Hall of Fame marathon and Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, then that was a Sunday race. That Monday, I went to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and I wore my medal all through that bad boy. And there's no shame in my game. Uh, and if anybody says anything to you, if anybody says anything to you, ask them how fast their marathon time was, because only 1% of Americans will run a marathon in their life. So, and it's less than 1%. So most likely, if somebody's telling you, just man, just don't worry about those people. Those people, they're if they're judgy, let them be judgy. But you're doing something that you've achieved that is difficult, and something you was intentional about, and something that you did that is it's just a great accomplishment. So enjoy it however you want to enjoy it. Now, normally I would ask Steph, I would ask you, would you run this race again? However, it sounds like you definitely would run this race again because you have ran this race many times. Uh,
I but what I have said, Miguel, is that I will serve as 550 pacer for as long as my body will allow for CIM.
that's great. We the Pacers are out there. We're out there. We're having a great time. And that's now. This is a December race. This episode will come out relatively close to our recording date. Um, but next year, if it's something that you're wanting to put in your calendar, I definitely would recommend that. Any closing words you would like to send us off with?
Any closing words? Just I have a lot of people reach out to me asking me what marathon would I recommend for first time marathoners. And for CIM, I would say if you are in the back of the pack and you are nervous about that 6 hour cutoff, maybe CIM isn't the race for you because they do hold a pretty strict 6 hour cutoff now. And if you finish over that 6 hour cutoff, you won't earn a finisher medal. And so I would hate for someone to show up there, run their very first marathon, and not walk away with a medal showing your accomplishment of running 26.2 miles. So if you are nervous about reaching that cutoff time, find another marathon that has a longer cutoff time, a more generous one, or doesn't have a cutoff time. I know Miguel, you and I both pace for on pace race, and I love that on pace race pacers. they'll often have a sweeper who is assigned to stay with the last runner and regardless of their finish time. So look at onpacerace.com at marathons they have coming up, or send me a DM on the socials. I'm Run Strong Run, and I'm open to hear all of your questions and available. I am much more likely to respond to you via a DM than a comment on some of my content, because then on a DM I can do a voice message back, and I love sending voice messages.
Awesome. That's great. That's really great. For me, I would like to just, I enjoy you coming on to the pod. I enjoy your time, the information gleaned from this race, the information in general that you can continue and transfer to other races. It's really, really great. Um, so I'll finish it, closing out. Just thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us. I would like to remind everybody to run the race you are in, and forward is a pace.